Hey guys, I'm ready for another week of some PGA golf. Welcome to the preview show for the Workday Charity Open at usually the home of the Memorial Muirfield Village in Dublin, Ohio. We're going to get 2 weeks in a row there at Muirfield, something unlike we've ever seen. First of all, I want to let you all know to be sure to go over to rotopros.com/sign-up. We just put a link in the live chat to get your free trial and join us in the Slack. A lot of great chat going on in there. Kenny, Chris, myself, all in there pretty much every day. Various sports. Right now we're covering EPL soccer. I'm going to add some more, probably MLS here in the next week or two. Kenny's doing League of Legends. We'll be ready for when all the big sports pop back up. Still doing NASCAR, and then ready to get back going with NHL, MLB, NBA coming back soon. So it's a great time to join and check us out, and let's turn on some green screens this week. So first of all, as you can tell, Chris is not joining me tonight. He's getting another bad storm up there in Canada. I don't know what's going on with the weather up there, but it's they get the freezing cold winters, and then they get the tornadoes and storms in the summer. So it doesn't sound like a place I need to go move, but hopefully all's well there. But my goal for tonight is I'm going to touch on the course, touch on the weather. It looks like it's going to be a factor for the first time since we've been back, really. After that, I'm going to go through each price range, just kind of touch on the slate and my thoughts overall after seeing ownership and a couple other things. After that, be sure to, throughout the show, put in your questions. And as soon as I get done with that, I'm going to go in and deep dive into some of the questions that I get. So be sure to put those in the chat here. That's where I'll be looking. So let's get to it. Muirfield Village is usually a fairly tough track on the PGA Tour. Takes a lot of iron game. We have usually some pretty high rough around the fairways and the green, which makes it tough on guys if they're missing greens or fairways. I think Chris posted it in the Slack earlier this week. Looks like there was a memo sent out to the players, just kind of talking about how they're going to lower the rough a little bit for this week, cut it down, and the greens are going to run a lot slower. So my thoughts on that are, obviously it's going to help people that are missing off the tee, maybe some Jordan Spieth. I don't know. And on the greens, I think is going to be the big difference. People are used to lightning fast greens here. I think it's going to be having slower greens is going to bring bad putters more into play. So I think it's going to definitely be lower scoring than we're used to seeing here. And in addition to that, it just allows those bad putters to be aggressive. And if they get hot being aggressive with putting, then maybe they can turn it around for the week. So I'm obviously targeting ball strikers as usual. But strokes gained approach is the main statistic. Opportunities gained to get some of that scoring. If you're looking over at Fantasy National, DK points. So I brought a lot of the scoring stats into play for me this week. Also looking at strokes gained ball striking just to get a little bit off the tee and rest of the tee to green into play. Strokes gained par 5. Again, there's 4 par 5s this week, so it looks like it's going to be very important to still make birdies on those par 5s. I know those are the easiest holes, but if you're not making birdies or maybe even eagles on these par 5s, then you're going to be behind the field. I threw in some par 4 scoring from the 450 to 500 range. A lot of the par 4s fall into that range, which is what usually makes this course a little tougher. And then I threw in some strokes gained around the green as my last stat, just to kind of get a look at that. I know with some pitch shots and things, so I'm looking at that this week. So I'm going to go ahead and jump in to the price ranges. Well, first of all, the weather. I think it's kind of interesting to look at, and I want to give my take on both sides of the argument here. So if you look at the weather, tomorrow is going to be absolutely perfect. If you're playing Showdown, there's no real wave advantage. Maybe you still target the early guys just because they're going to have some wetter greens, maybe more receptive. But I have heard as well that the greens are pretty soft and receptive compared to what they usually do here already. So I'm not really worried about that if I was playing Showdown. But the big day is Friday. Looks like there's chance of scattered storms in the morning and then becoming a little bit more widespread Friday afternoon, and the wind kicks up. If you look at Wind Finder, and the closest weather station is, I believe, I'm looking at the Shawnee Hills and O'Shaughnessy, the closest one to this course. So Friday, it looks like even in the morning, though, there's still going to be some gusts with those storms rolling in. But by the time you get to 1, 2 o'clock, you're looking at maintained 16 to 18 mile an hour winds with 25 gusts. And that kind of stays through the afternoon. The thing is, with those storms rolling in, they're obviously not going to play through these storms. So on the flip side of saying, yeah, you could target the PM guys on Thursday, and then they're going to play in the morning on Friday. They'll get both their rounds done more than likely. They'll miss the biggest portion of the wind Friday. And they'll have both rounds done pretty close to each other, playing in the afternoon and in the morning, back-to-back days. And then you have the early wave Thursday. They're going to have to wait. They'll finish Thursday morning. They'll be sitting around all day Thursday evening, Friday morning. They'll come out, and my guess is play's going to be stopped Friday afternoon. And if it's probably going to be pop-up showers, so maybe they play around it, maybe they don't. You can look at it two ways. If they play around some of these storms, then yeah, if they're playing with the wind, they're going to get the worst wave. If it gets completely rained out, stormed out Friday afternoon, they're going to come back Friday morning. And let's see what Friday morning looks, or Saturday morning. They're going to come back Saturday morning, and looks like no rain, 8 to 10 mile an hour winds, maybe up to 15 gusts on Saturday morning. Probably going to be a little bit better than if they play Friday afternoon. So what I'm getting at is these Thursday morning guys could potentially play 2 morning rounds and not so heavy of wind. So that's my long way of saying I'm not probably going to target one wave as opposed to the other, just for that off chance that it gets rained out, they play 2 morning rounds, and then it's either even or they're ahead of the game. So maybe if you're playing a 20 max, you play 2 or 3 lineups, focusing completely on the wave stacks, play all PM or all Thursday AM, all Thursday PM. But I wouldn't go one complete way versus the other. It's just my general thoughts. And I'm not playing a 20 max this week. I'm only playing a few lineups and some single entries. So I'm personally not going to just fade a guy because he's in a certain wave. So that's where I'm with the weather. So let's go ahead and from there jump into some of my core plays for the week. So first of all, let's look above 10K. It's nice that we've seen some ownership numbers now. Patrick Cantlay looks to be the chalk up here, and he was my favorite play coming into the week. I don't think that's going to change for me. Man, he won here last year at the Memorial, 4th here in 2018. He's 10-6, third highest priced, I know. But he hasn't looked very bad coming out of the break. Rust shouldn't be an issue at this point, and he ranks first in my model this week. He's probably going to be the top play for me. The one who's jumped up my probably my rankings in this top range this week is Koepka. I wasn't very big on him coming to the week. I was leaning probably Justin Thomas as my second guy up here over him. But by the looks of it, he's going to be the lowest on from 10K and above, I believe. So I think Brooks, he's coming back this week, had some layoff. He hasn't necessarily been great here in the past. He played here in 2015 and 17, made the cut both times, but no spectacular finishes. I think he's a much better golfer now. He still needs to get that iron game going. His game kind of reminds me of Bryson a little bit. The iron game's not going, but he's been great off the tee and pretty good on the greens. So I think Brooks is my second favorite guy up here, behind Cantlay for me. And the other guys, I mean, none of these are bad plays. I think I would rank them Cantlay, Brooks, JT, Matsuyama, Rahm, Schauffele. That's my rankings, 10K and above. Right now, I'm leaning in my first single entry towards going one guy up here. I do see the merit to going a balanced lineup because a lot of the plays we have in this 9 and 8K range. So that just transitions me right into here. A lot of guys in here this week, and I'm going to actually skip the 9K range for now and just talk about my favorite play in the 8K range is Joaquin Niemann. Been on him really a long time, but almost every week he's played since this. He's been playing very good. The final round, his last time out, scared me a little bit. I don't think I'm worried about it, and it doesn't look like many people are with his ownership. I think he's looking around let's see. Looks like he's going to be between 15 and 20%. But he just is a guy for me that I'm not going to get off of just because ownership, and especially not 15 to 20%. Let's see. Rest of this range, I'm looking back in the 9K range. Rose is very interesting to me. He's probably my favorite in that 9K range. Hovland, I mean, they're neck and neck right there. 3rd and 7th in my model. Rose has been great here. He ranks 1st in course history for me in my model. If you look back, 13th last year, 6th a couple years ago at Memorial, 2nd in 2015. He won here in 2010. That's very enticing to me. I don't know that I will get there in a single entry if I start up with a guy like Cantlay or Koepka. Hovland just been playing great with his irons. This type of setup this week should fit him very well. 9,500, I think, is a fair price for him. And then back in the 8K range, one of my favorite plays of the week is Marc Leishman. 4th in my model, 7th in course history, 5th here a year ago. He had a few more great finishes from 15 to 17 here. I just really like the way he's came around after that first week. He didn't play great on that first week back. I believe, he missed the cut. Made the cut in the next event, but he has been playing great with his irons, and I think he can turn that around and really score for us this week. 8,700 is a fine price for me. My thing with this 8K range, after Niemann, I think I will be fading the 83 to 8,000 range. Woodland, I've been playing him a lot, but I just can't get behind this off the tee game. I know, like I said, the rough's a little bit down this week, and he's been pretty good with his irons. Some decent finishes here in the past. Let's see, he's coming in at probably close to 15%. I'm just not on him. That's where I'm at this week. I like guys around him more. Spieth is the last guy I want to mention here. He's pretty interesting to me. Usually this type of course, if that rough was up, the way he's been hitting the ball off the tee, I would X him out right away. and I still may in with limited lineups because I like Leishman more. But 7th here a year ago, 13th in 2017, 3rd in 2015. Um, he just shows flashes, and he scores in bunches when he gets hot. I mean, he can drain putts. He's been pretty good with his irons, actually. Um, Improved a little bit since the return, at least. And he's going to be pretty low on. So I think for a GPP play, he's fine. He's obviously very volatile. I think if I were to use him this week, it's probably going to be in Showdown a little bit more. And we've talked about that a lot in the Slack, as he is just a great Showdown play because he makes so many birdies. So let's drop down into the 7K range. Joel Damon is going to be pretty high on this week, but I'm not getting off of him. I've been riding him ever since the return as well. 7,700 is very fair for him. Just don't overthink it. If you like a guy, just play him. Don't fade him just because you see a few more percent than you were expecting, or you're comparing him to a guy that's 1 or 2 more percent less owned, and you're like, oh, I got to play somebody else. So just don't do that this week is my advice. The rest of this range, Streelman is pretty interesting at 7,800. I do like Damon more, but Streelman could be a pivot there. Let's see where he's coming in ownership compared. Well, that's kind of what I'm saying. He's coming around 10%. Damon's going to be 15 to 20. Is 5% really worth the fade? No. Can you play them both together and I'd be fine with it? Definitely. So that's where I'm at. I like Streelman. The rest of this range, let's see. Varner is fine to me. He's been pretty good with his irons lately. He doesn't have great history here, but this type of setup should suit him a little bit better than the fast and fast setup on the greens and longer rough off the tee. This one should suit him a little bit more. Ben on 7,900. He's been great here in the past. He falls into that category of these slow greens, should help him. If he can be aggressive on the greens, he really can't be any worse than he is already on the greens. So he's an interesting play for me. If I drop down into the low 7K range, Homa, he kind of pops to me as my favorite down here. Him and Emiliano Grillo is interesting, 7,200. He's been playing a little bit better, but Homa is probably the best and going to be one of my core plays if I'm dropping down here this week, and I definitely will be. And I mentioned it in the article. I like this lower 7K range a lot more than if I needed to dip down into the sixes. I know that's probably going to be the popular way to go, but Homa made the cut last year here, 37th in his only appearance. He's just been great with irons. Last 24 rounds, he ranks 9th in strokes gained approach, 6th in ball striking. Been pretty good with the scoring stats, top 25 in both opportunities and DK points. The really only place that he struggled is around the green. And like I said, these greens could suit him and help him out a little bit this week. Let's see. That's kind of my core down there. If I'm going to just to make a few builds, that's where I'm going. McNeely 7,500 is fine. The only thing about him is it looks like he has gained a little bit with the putter lately. So maybe that's a little scary. He's still a fine play down there for me. Let's see. Lento Griffin, I was on him last week. Looks like he's turning form around a little bit. I think this is his debut at Muirfield. 7,400. He's a fine play. I know Chris is on Lowry as a bet. I think that's what I would reserve him for as a bet. I don't know if for me, I'm going to go to him in DFS. If he pops, he can win. If he doesn't, he can miss the cut. So, he's a boomer bust type of guy, and he's a guy I wouldn't mind a bet on it at the odds that he has this week. So let's see. I'm going to quickly touch on the 6K range, and then I'm going to get to any questions that we have here. So Nesmith 6,800 ranks top in my model for this range, and that's almost simply due to the fact that he's been pretty good with his irons, and a lot of that was at the RBC Heritage, but still at the Travelers he gained strokes on approach. He didn't play very well anywhere else. So I do like Nesmith down there. Norlander, he hit it very well last week. If he can improve any, this is his on the greens, and then this could be a course he could go low on. I remember from a few years back when he was on tour, I think he ended up losing his card or something and went to the Corn Ferry and got it back. Maybe I'm misremembering that, but he was always a guy that was one of the first-round leader guys that you could watch out for, one of the Thursday warriors. So Norlander, with the way he was hitting it, maybe you could look at him for that, maybe a first-round leader bet. But for DFS, 6,500 is just fine as well. Let's see. There's a lot of guys down here and a lot of guys I don't want to play. So I think for me with limited lineups, I'm not going to go dip very much into this range. If you all have any questions on guys down here, be sure to let me know. Munoz 6,800 is fine. Ortiz is fine, 6,400. A lot of flyers down here that I think you can play in GPP, but I don't know that I would dip much in here if I was doing single entry or maybe even 3 max. Let's see. So do we have any questions here? Ryan says, who's your pick to win this week? So my only outright bet as of now is Neiman. I think I got 47 to 1. I think he's going to win this year is my opinion. The way he's been hitting it, been playing good at Birdie Fest. This is a little bit more. He's been great here. A little bit more of a birdie fest than usual here. But if you look back at his history, even when this course is playing tough, 6th and 27th the last 2 years here. So he really likes this place. I don't think it's going to play much different as far as if you know this course, you're going to know how to work your way around it no matter what the rough is or the greens are. So he's a guy I really like for DFS and a bet. I think he contends. I think he gets us the top 5 this week. If not, pulls off a win. If you want a more realistic top guy that's not 40 to 1 to win out of that top range, I think Cantlay. I mean, he won here last year. He's my favorite up here, and he would be my pick to win out of the highest priced or lowest price in betting guys. And let's see. And Leishman, I like him as well for betting. I like those odds similar to where Neiman's at. All right. Have any more questions? Feel free to drop them in the chat, and I can be sure to answer them. I am going to touch on the tiers pricing on DraftKings. I had that question. I believe it was from Mark in chat earlier. I don't play very much tiers. I know they added that just barely before this break, really. So I think it's an interesting game type for sure. You're limited, and you can really get, I think, some leverage with some of the guys down here in the tiers. I think some of the guys are going to garner a ton of ownership. So let me go through those, and I can even put a scale in the I haven't posted my skeletons for the season or the tournament long contest or anything yet, so I can post a tier scale as well in our Slack chat. So let's see, tier 1. First couple tiers only have a few golfers in it. I don't know that that's where you need to necessarily get different. Cantlay, Rahm, and Thomas in that first things. I I would think it's probably the ownership is gonna go Cantlay, Thomas, Rahm, which is pretty interesting. Because you would think the other two, Thomas and Rahm, would be higher than Cantlay, but at this tournament, I think Cantlay, I like him the most in regular DFS, and I think that's where I would go. I think the lowest on Rahm, he's fine in this type of format for sure to get a little leverage. But like I said, I like Cantlay the most, but they're all fine if you want to mix and match. Tier 2, Schauffele, Hovland, and Koepka. The way I think it's probably going to be Hovland, Koepka, 1, 2, and then Schauffele. That's where I am leaning. From that range, let's see. My favorite would probably be. So what's interesting about this is price does not matter. So you have two 10K guys, and then you have Hovland, which may have more ownership if I'm looking at this and thinking the right way. So maybe that's a place that you leverage and go Koepka if you think Hovland might be the same or more ownership when you have a guy who probably has a better chance to really win the tournament. I would probably go Koepka, especially in a GPP for tier 2. This is where it kind of gets interesting when you get a few more. Let's see. So tier 3, you have Matsuyama, Morikawa, M, Leishman, Rose. So this is kind of the stance I would take, depending on how many lineups you're building for tiers. If I'm building 5 to 10, I would probably X out Morikawa and M, and then maybe rotate the others a little bit. I like Leishman the most, and that's so Leishman's not going to be super owned in regular, but I think he's going to be definitely third or fourth in this format. Matsuyama, I mean, you're getting two near 10K guys, and then you have 8,700 Leishman, who's 40 to 1 to win. I think that's an interesting play. And as we say, this kind of, if you think of the way I do my model for the week, it does not take into account pricing. So this kind of format, if you focus on what guys are popping for you, maybe a little more in the model that doesn't even take into account price, then you can get to a guy and like Leishman over a Matsuyama and Rose. And I think they're definitely going to be the two highest owned in this range, with Leishman coming in behind them. So I like Leishman, then Rose, then Matsuyama for me. Tier 4, Hadwin, Reed, Oosthuizen, Kuchar, Spieth, Fowler. So this is a pretty wide variety. In regular pricing, regular format this week, I don't like many of these guys at all. I think this is where we come into I would probably lean Spieth here. I don't know what ownership. I think it would be pretty spread out here. Oosthuizen shouldn't get much ownership. Let's see. Yeah, I like Spieth, and then second for me would be, I think, Hadwin. He should be pretty low owned. I like him this week. I didn't mention him in the first breakdown, but he kind of falls into that range. I'm fading in regular, but he can provide some nice leverage as a lower name than everybody else in this range. So you got to think he's going to be one of the lower owned guys here. And kind of like I say in regular DFS, when you're building these lineups too, you don't necessarily need to just go complete all less than 5% guys. I know I'm mentioning a lot of the lower owned guys for tiers. That's just because I kind of want to give you the idea of who is going to be the lower owned, and how you need to attack it, and maybe where you can gain some leverage. But you don't have to play all guys who are going to be the lowest owned in these ranges. There's a reason that most of them are going to be up there. So Pick and choose with a couple of them. Go with the lower owned guys and get your leverage there. So Spieth and Hadwin are my favorite two in that range. Tier 5, it gets a little bit wider. Woodland, Scheffler, Fitzpatrick, On, Neiman. Oh, man, Neiman. I can't go away from him. He's going to be the chalk in this range. But Watson, Wolf, and Day, those three are completely X'd out in my eyes. Scheffler and Fitzpatrick are X'd out, and Woodland, I think he's going to be one of the top two owned in this range. So my favorite two, this is a pretty easy range for me. Neiman, then On, and then if I had to pick somebody else, Woodland. But I think Neiman and On are my two favorite for sure. Neiman's going to be the chalk. On should be kind of mid-pack in ownership for that. So close it out with tier 6, McNeely, Damon, Varner, Poulter, Horschel, Connors, Snedeker, Mickelson. So the bottom two for sure, X'd out. Snedeker was a complete burn for me and a stupid play. I think if you look back at it last week, I thought the course type and a couple other things would fall in his favor, but I should have just rode with the iron play. It had been very bad. So bad play on my part, looking back when I reviewed kind of what I did last week. For me here, it's going to be Damon. I think he's going to be the highest owned. After Damon, I think Varner and McNeely are solid plays. And if you want a guy who's probably not going to be very owned at all here, I would probably go Poulter. He's been playing pretty good since the return. Let's see. He was really good at the RBC. Let's see. Yeah, 29th, 14th, and then he was 64th at Travelers. He did make the cut. He had a pretty bad third round, but that was kind of what held him back. But, hey, he's fine here. I think that it was interesting looking this week. Poulter, I think it's his debut here. For the type of player he is in the course that we're on, I wouldn't have expected it to be his debut. Yeah, it is. So that was just something that stood out to me. But like I said, tier 6, it's Damon, number 1 for me, and then Varner, number 2. And then if you want to mix in McNeely and Poulter for me, the other guys I would fade completely. So do we have any other questions? I see we still got to thank you guys for holding in here. We're running about the 30-minute mark. If you all have any last questions, be sure to pump them in the chat, and I'll be sure to get to them for you really quick here. Not going to stay on live much longer. Be sure to check us out, like I said, at RotoPros. Join us in the Slack. We have some showdown analysis, Chris and I both, throughout the week. We've had pretty good success with that, especially in cash games. That's usually what I do in Showdown is I'm more of a GPP player in full tournament. But Showdown, I think cash games is where I've kind of had more success. Just targeting guys who have been hitting it well from tee to green, or vice versa on the greens, but usually pretty good with their irons, and maybe they can flip that. But looking at something that they can flip as far as their form from day to day, it's been pretty interesting, and a pretty good. It's worked out pretty well for both of us. I think that's kind of what we look at from day to day, and we break it down for you and answer any questions through the week. So be sure to join us. Jimmy says, I don't have Brooks in any lineups. Should I reconsider? How many lineups do you have, Jimmy? If you have, I like Brooks. Like I said, he's kind of jumped his way up in my rankings from when I wrote my article. 6 lineups. So personally, for me, if I was making 6 lineups, I would probably just have him in 1 or 2. And then I would probably play Cantlay in 3, maybe 4. And then the other lineups that don't start with him, I'm starting mid-range with either a Hovland or a Rose. So that's me. I mean, that's not to say you have to play it, because there's a lot of good plays up there in that 10K up range, and he's definitely not a must play. So depends where your research took you this week. For me, it took me back to with him. I like the way he was trending. I like the way it seems like he has a little bit more of a chip back on his shoulder. That's always seems to be a thing with him, especially with the majors. But I think he's been showing up a little bit more in these lower field events, and this is a pretty strong field to get ready for next week. So I like him. He's a 1 to 2 lineup guy for me personally in 6 builds, but he's not a must play by any means. Last thing I'll touch on, and then I'm going to get out of here if there's no more questions. If you do want to focus on the PM AM, and like I said, it's viable. Not something I'm going to go out of my way to do, because I think there is the off chance that the PM guys on Friday get rained out, which should help them. But PM guys tomorrow for tournament long, you have Leishman. Some of the guys that I already like that are playing in the afternoon. So I'm going to mention Leishman, Homa, Cantlay's in the afternoon, Spieth, he's in the afternoon. I mean, I'm not big on him, but he's fine. Neiman is in the afternoon. Let's see. Poulter's in the afternoon. Reed, Snedeker, Morikawa, Fitzpatrick, Ortiz. Maybe that if I was making a 20 lineup build and I was doing those stacks, that's kind of where I would focus on doing, getting my exposure to guys like Ortiz and any 6K guy, flyer guys, because that would help those guys way more than the high price guys if they fall in the right wave. So that's something to look out for. All right. Heavy on Cantlay. Yep. That's me personally. I know he's going to be popular, but hey, if you like a guy, don't just fade him because popularity. And that's where I'm at, and that's where I'm always at. So good luck to everybody this week. Like I said, be sure to check us out on the website and sign up and join us for a free trial. What can hurt a free trial? I mean, join us and see if you like us. If you do, stick around. Like I said, we have tons of content going on right now, all the sports. I think Chris always says he has, around getting close to 10 sheets or so. You have access to all of those for free for the free trial as well. So be sure to join us. Thanks for everybody sticking around, and good luck this week.